Welcome, everybody, to Chapter 3 of a conversation between Mark Cowan, the CEO of Put It Forward, and myself, Jim Mullarney. Today, we're going to talk about CDPs and what Put It Forward refer to as their Put It Forward synthetic CDP. Mark, how are you today?
I'm great, Jim. Nice to be spending some time with you again.
Nice too as well. So, you ready to talk about some CDPs?
Indeed, let's get at it.
Okay, let's jump right into the problem. So historically, sometimes CDP projects get pulled down the rabbit hole of becoming a master data management project, not necessarily a marketing project, or the data that's pumped into a system is garbage, and it results in a gigo problem, garbage in, garbage out. And third, the typical conflict that happens within the enterprise. Who is driving the actual project? Is it IT? Is it marketing? Is it sales? Is it finance? Is it HR? Who knows who? Can you shed some of your experience around the typical CDP problem today that you see?
The first thing I will say is that it's a universal problem in such that everybody is trying to drive a better customer experience, to make the most out of the resources they have, to drive real value and return and demonstrate relevancy for the organization. The challenge that you have with any kind of, let's call it centralized, data design scenario like an MDM or a CDP is that typically a CDP-like project is referred to as deep plumbing, meaning that it's deep in the infrastructure versus, the people that are trying to solve the problem, which is in the here and now, and they're trying to make a better experience without having to, re-architect the world that they're part of. So the torsion that typically happens inside of an organization that we see right now is usually in between the folks that are responsible for the infrastructure, whether that's the architects or the system engineers, et cetera, and the people that are trying to get a job done or demonstrate some real returns on it. So the challenge is manyfold across that. I think in order to drive the bus effectively, as it were, it's really a matter of making sure that the business problem remains clearly in scope and in focus at all stages of it, and you keep it, at a manageable level and a manageable size.
So that's what I refer to as not boiling the ocean, correct?
It definitely not boiling the ocean. Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go to the typical purpose of a customer data platform. Obviously, we need a system of data, a suite of connectivity, and an AI stack that delivers AI-driven insights in real time. That's the end game for any CDP. How do you guys compare to what's happening with other solutions in the marketplace, and what makes you guys different?
First off, there's a lot of good solutions out there in the market space, and so this is really about how we look at these things differently than others do. We think that the nature of the problem is really about context and being able to pull together and respond to a contextual driven type of scenario. And in order to do that, you have to be agile, you have to be flexible, and therefore, when you get into the final analysis of it, it means that you have to have a non-permanent solution in place. And this is where we differ significantly, I think, from the majority of the other vendors or other solutions that are out there, which is they're essentially trying to create data at rest inside of another part of the landscape. And in doing so, then you are into the deep problems around MDM and centralization and deep plumbing, et cetera. And so our difference is about keeping it agile, keeping it moving very quickly, contextual driven types of scenarios, and layering in certainly the AI on top of that to drive outcomes.
So very much a point in time view of exactly what's going on, so a decision can be made.
Exactly. It's just like this conversation that we're having, right? Which is, it's driven in real-time feedback in between one another, as opposed to, call and response and having the same call and response every time.
Let's talk briefly about the process. If you could walk us through exactly how you would tackle this in the real world.
Yeah, in the real world, I think the process is, number one, is certainly having access to all these different pieces of information that comprise your customer view at any one moment in time. The very important piece to know about this or to focus on is that when you're thinking about a CDP type of problem, it's not just the customer profile information. it's also the customer profile information over time. And creating that time-centric, in the moment view with history and categorization and all those things that go along with it is really the essence of what drives the process around this, and helping create that 360-degree view. But we kind of actually think about it more like a sphere, when it's all wrapped around you versus just the view through a thin slice.
Let's talk very briefly about timelines. A lot of customers, when they start going down the path of deploying a CDP, the typical timeframes can be 12, 18 months, sometimes even longer. It's a big bang type project that incorporates every part of the enterprise. How is Put It Forward different? Because I know that we spoke about doing things, not boiling the ocean, but very discrete sets of data. For example, take a set of first-party data, test it, mash it up with some third-party data, and then have an operational point of time system within 60 to 90 days. Can you talk a bit about that and what makes you guys very different, and how it can actually help a client achieve ROI faster?
I think in general, when you're looking at doing deep infrastructure, deep plumbing, like a CDP type of project, in any decent sized organization, you're looking at a minimum of 12 to 18 months for first phase, and first phase to be done responsibly. And our view is different than that, in that we're not layering in the deep technology in order to having to categorize and manage all this information from a centralized repository first. We're dealing with the data where it actually resides, and being able to pull it together very quickly using the integration layer and the access layers and the governance functions inside Put It Forward. Then, of course, the AI-driven algorithms that sit on top of that. And the net result is that we end up staying focused and hyper-focused on the problem that someone's trying to solve for, or the opportunity someone's trying to solve for. And the result set is that we get to value, usually within a very short amount of time, typically measured in the 60 to 90 day range. And so very different approach to that. And again, it's iterative. So you're layering in on it over time. You are, adjusting in flight so that, as your needs change, you can adjust to, either the market or the value proposition that you're trying to solve for without having to go back and rewire everything. And that's one of the reasons why I think that, in our space, or at least our approach to it, we end up getting to value much quicker than others would in terms of a traditional architectural approach.
Yeah, that's a game changer. Finally, some of the results, CDPs can be used for a whole host of different purposes, but you guys seem to gear it to support many different areas. For example, signals driven by sensors, a 360 view of the client at a point in time, attribution modeling, account-based marketing, you name it. Where do you see the big opportunity right now for the enterprise, and what do you see customers looking for?
I think the number one thing that customers are looking for is more meaningful connection with their customers and their employees and their partners and the members really of their ecosystem. I'd say that's probably the number one thing is about personalization in that context. How that's being used are, there's a number of different scenarios. Part of that is just, trying to drive better returns. Part of that is trying to drive a better customer experience. Some of it's trying to keep your customers, and also keep, your employees employed, et cetera, and grow your organization. It does feed into a number of different strategies, whether that's around, cost management or account-based marketing, and so on. So it kind of is the foundation pin, as it were, maybe not the foundation pin, but is definitely a foundational component of, a number of different data-driven strategies inside the organization.
So that's a wrap from our discussion around the synthetic CDP that Put It Forward offers. Really appreciate your time today. Any final remarks? Maybe talk about today's environment and how it makes this even more of a pressing issue.
Nothing really major to add on beyond what we've covered already, because it could start a very deep conversation. But I think the most pressing thing that we're all dealing with these days is really how do we make the best decisions based on the available information that we have, and not just the best decisions, but also the best experiences. I know that, inside Put It Forward, we think about this all the time, not just for our customers, but our customers' customers. And we also think about it for our own employees and our partners, and how do we, use these technologies and capabilities that we have in order to, not just drive value, but drive meaning. And that's where we, spend a lot of our time these days. That would be the only additional thing that I would add to that at this time. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mark. I look forward to our next chapter, chapter 4, which is coming soon.
My pleasure, Jim. Always good. Bye now.